The single dad runs into his ex at the airport after 7 years and is in shock. His reaction was incredible. Before we begin, leave us a comment telling us what city you are watching from. The Mexico City airport was buzzing with activity on a Friday afternoon. Diego Ramirez, 40, adjusted his backpack strap while guiding his 6-year-old twins toward the boarding gate. Stella walked to his left, taking everything in with her big, curious eyes, while Luna bounced slightly to his right, dragging her small pink suitcase. "Dad, can we buy candy now?" Stella asked, pointing to a colorful store. "After the flight, my love," Diego replied, nervously checking his watch. As an established architect in Buenos Aires, he had planned this family vacation in Cancun as a way to create new memories after 4 difficult years of raising his daughters alone. "Just for the girls. Is it much longer until we get to the beach?" Luna tugged gently on his sleeve. "I want to build sandcastles like the ones Mommy Alara used to make." Diego felt the familiar knot in his throat when he heard his late wife's name. "It's not much longer, my darling. Just one layover here and—" He stopped in his tracks. There she was, Paloma Salinas, standing in front of the flight screen, wearing a smart navy blue coat that contrasted with her brown hair, now shorter and more professional. She carried a black rolling suitcase and a laptop slung over her shoulder. For a moment, Diego felt as if time had stopped. 8 years. 8 years since she had disappeared from his life without explanation, leaving him with an engagement ring and a broken heart when he was just 32. Paloma turned as if she had felt his gaze. Their eyes met across the airport's bustle. The shock on her face was immediate and genuine. She froze, her lips slightly parted, before something like panic crossed her features. "Dad, why did you stop?" Luna tugged on his denim jacket. Diego didn't answer. He couldn't take his eyes off the woman who had once been the center of his universe. Paloma looked different, more mature, more confident. But there was also something in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Weariness? Loneliness? It was Luna who broke the spell. With the natural curiosity of a 6-year-old, she let go of her father's hand and walked directly toward Paloma. "Hello," she said with a bright smile. "You're a journalist. Your suitcase looks very professional like the ones on TV." Paloma looked down at the little girl, clearly surprised. Yes, I work in news. How did you know?" "By your laptop and that press tag." Stella had also approached, pointing to the ID hanging from Paloma's neck. "Plus, you have the face of someone who travels a lot, like those important people on TV." Diego approached slowly, feeling as if he were walking through water. Paloma. Diego. His name came out of his lips like a sigh. I didn't expect." "Me neither." They stood there, in the middle of the airport, as passengers moved around them. The noise seemed distant, as if they were in a bubble. "Are they your daughters?" Paloma asked, her voice barely audible. "Yes, Luna and Stella." Diego put his hands on the girls' shoulders. "Girls, this is an old friend, Paloma." "A friend from when you were young?" Luna asked, with the brutal honesty of children. Paloma smiled for the first time, a small but genuine smile. "Something like that. And you work in television?" Stella never lost track of what really mattered to her. "I work for a Mexican news company. I travel a lot for my job." "Like an adventurer?" And for a moment, the tension between the adults softened. Diego studied her. There was something different about her way of speaking, more careful, as if she were choosing every word. The Paloma he remembered was spontaneous, sometimes reckless. This woman seemed to have built invisible walls around herself. "Where are you going?" Paloma asked, clearly looking for safe conversational ground. "Cancun, family vacation," Diego replied. And you? Caracas, for work. The word work fell between them with a particular weight. Diego remembered the discussions they had had about their respective ambitions, about the future he had planned for both of them. Passengers of Flight 425 to Cancun, a voice announced over the loudspeaker. Due to meteorological conditions, the flight is indefinitely delayed. What does that mean, Dad? Stella asked. It means we're going to be here for a while longer, my love. Paloma checked her phone. My flight is also delayed. There's a storm. They stood there, the four of them, in a situation that none of the adults had anticipated. The girls seemed to be the only ones comfortable with the unexpected meeting. Do you want to get something to eat? Diego asked finally. The girls are hungry and, well, it looks like we're going to be here for a while. Paloma hesitated. I don't want to be a bother. It's not a bother, Luna said immediately. Dad always says it's good to make new friends when you travel. And you seem nice, Stella added. Plus, I like your accent. It sounds different from Dad's. Paloma looked at Diego for some sign of what he really wanted. What she saw in his eyes was not hostility, but a complex mix of surprise, curiosity, and something she couldn't fully identify. Okay, she finally said. A coffee wouldn't be bad. As they walked to the airport cafe, Diego wondered what forces of destiny had conspired to put the woman he once loved back in his path, just as he had begun to build a stable life for his daughters. And more importantly, he wondered if he was prepared for the answers this encounter might bring. The twins walked on each side of Paloma, bombarding her with questions about the countries she had visited, oblivious to the emotional storm unfolding between the adults around them. Chapter 2. Unspoken Truths. The airport cafe was surprisingly quiet for a Friday afternoon. Diego chose a table near the window where the girls could watch the planes, while Paloma sat across from him. The physical distance was short, but it felt like an abyss. Do you want hotcakes? Diego asked the twins, trying to maintain normalcy. Yes, they yelled in unison, and then Luna added, Paloma, what are you going to order? Just a coffee, she responded, but Stella shook her head. Dad says when you travel a lot, you need to eat well. Right, Dad? Diego nodded, surprised by how his daughters had immediately taken to Paloma. The girls are right. You should eat something. Paloma smiled, the first completely genuine smile she had shown. Okay, a sandwich then. As they waited for the food, the twins colored in their travel notebooks, but their ears were clearly tuned in to the adults' conversation. They look happy, Paloma said, watching Luna and Stella. They're beautiful. They look like their mom, Diego responded automatically, and then regretted it when he saw Paloma tense up slightly. How is Alara? She asked carefully. Diego felt the familiar weight in his chest. Alara passed away 4 years ago. Car accident. The silence that followed was heavy. Paloma was speechless, her eyes filling with a painful understanding. Diego, I'm so sorry. Mom is with the stars now, Luna said, without looking up from her drawing. That's why Dad named us after them, to remember that she's always watching over us from above. Paloma felt involuntary tears. For 8 years, she had avoided thinking about Diego, building emotional walls that her career as a journalist, specializing in Venezuelan migration, had demanded of her. But standing in front of him, seeing the dedicated father he had become, was crumbling those carefully constructed defenses. It must have been very difficult, she murmured, and for the first time in years, her professional voice cracked slightly. The first few months were... Diego stopped, looking at his daughters. They were complicated. I had to learn a lot of things, like how to do braids. Dad is really bad at making braids, Stella laughed, but he's getting better. And he also learned to cook things other than pasta, Luna added. Despite everything, Paloma smiled. "Do you still burn water?" "Hey, I've improved a lot," Diego protested. And for a moment, the years disappeared, and they were those young people who knew each other so well again. "Did you know each other when you were boyfriend and girlfriend?" Stella asked with the direct curiosity of children. Diego and Paloma looked at each other. "We were very good friends," he responded carefully. "And why aren't you friends anymore?" Luna had put down her crayons and was looking at them with those eyes that seemed to see too much. Paloma felt the weight of the question. "Sometimes life takes people down different paths, but they can find each other again," Stella observed. "Like now?" The food arrived, providing a necessary distraction. While the girls attacked their hotcakes, Diego and Paloma found a more comfortable rhythm of conversation. "Are you still working as an architect?" she asked. "Yes, I have my own firm now, mainly residential projects." Diego took a sip of coffee. "And you? Are you still traveling for work?" "I'm a senior correspondent for Univision Mexico. I specialize in migration issues, mainly the Venezuelan situation." Her voice took on a more professional tone. "I spend a lot of time between Colombia and the northern border of Mexico. That must be dangerous," Diego commented, remembering the news he had seen. Paloma shrugged. "It's part of the job. Someone has to tell those stories." "Have you been to Venezuela?" Luna, who had been listening, asked. "Many times. It's a very beautiful country, but it's going through difficult times, like when Mommy Alara got sick." Stella's question took everyone by surprise. Diego looked at her gently. "Something like that, my love, but different." Paloma studied the girls. It was obvious that they had lost their mother when they were very young, but Diego had done an extraordinary job raising them. They were confident, curious, empathetic. The opposite of what she had expected when she met him at 24. Ambitious, but immature. Focused on his career, but with no idea of what real commitment meant. "Do you have children?" Luna asked directly. The question fell like a stone in calm water. Paloma tensed visibly. "No," she replied after a pause. "My job requires a lot of travel. It wouldn't be fair to a family." Diego watched her carefully. There was something about the way she had answered, a note of pain that he recognized but couldn't fully identify. "Attention passengers," a voice announced over the loudspeaker. "Due to the approaching tropical storm, canceled until tomorrow morning. Please go to your airline's counter to rebook your flights." "What does that mean, Dad?" Stella asked. "It means we're going to spend the night in Mexico City," Diego replied, already mentally calculating hotels and logistics. Paloma checked her phone. "My flight to Caracas is also canceled." "Are you going to stay with us?" Luna asked hopefully. "I don't know if—" "There's an airport hotel," Diego said. "If you want, I can help you get a room. They're probably filling up fast." Paloma looked at him, searching for the intentions behind the offer. What she saw was not the impulsive young man she remembered, but a mature man, a father who had learned to be considerate and practical. "Can we have dinner together?" Stella asked. "We've never had dinner with a real journalist before." "Please," Luna added. "Dad cooks, but you must have much more interesting stories." Diego smiled despite everything. "Don't pressure her, girls. Paloma has to decide what she wants to do." Paloma looked at them, at Diego, who had matured in ways she hadn't anticipated, at the twins who had accepted her with the honest simplicity of children, and at the impossible situation she was in. "Okay," she finally said. "One night can't hurt." What she didn't know was that this night would change everything she had carefully built over the past 8 years. And she also didn't know that Diego, watching her accept his daughter's invitation, wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his life. or if he would finally get the answers he had needed for so many years. Chapter: The Night That Changed Everything. The airport hotel was, as Diego had predicted, filling up fast. After an hour in line, he finally got 2 rooms, one for him and the twins, another for Paloma. As they went up in the elevator, Stella didn't stop asking questions. How many countries have you been to? Have you seen elephants? Is it true that in some places there's no McDonald's? Paloma laughed genuinely for the first time in months. I've been to 12 countries. I haven't seen elephants. And yes, there are places without McDonald's. What's the most beautiful place you visited? Luna, more thoughtful, asked. Paloma considered the question as the elevator doors opened. Cartagena, in Colombia. The streets are full of colors, and the people are very warm, although... She stopped. I've also seen some very sad places, shelters on the border where families are waiting to cross. Diego watched her as she spoke. This Paloma was different from the impetuous young woman he had known. There was depth in her voice, experiences that had marked her. Why did you choose to work with sad people? Stella asked, with the brutal honesty of children. Paloma knelt to the girl's level. Because I think their stories deserve to be heard. Sometimes when people watch the news, they understand better and can help. Like when Dad explains why we can't buy toys for all the children in the world, but we can donate the ones we don't use anymore, Luna observed. Exactly. Diego smiled. His daughters had inherited Alara's compassion and, it seemed, had a natural connection with Paloma that he hadn't anticipated. Well, let's drop off our stuff, and then we'll see what we can have for dinner, he said, handing Paloma her room key card. An hour later, they met in the hotel restaurant. The twins had insisted on sitting one on each side of Paloma, leaving Diego across from her. The conversation flowed surprisingly naturally. And what's the hardest thing about being a single dad? Paloma asked, while the girls attacked their chicken nuggets. Diego reflected. Parent-teacher meetings, he admitted. All the other moms know each other, form WhatsApp groups, organize playdates. I still feel like an intruder. Dad gets really nervous when he has to talk to the moms, Stella confirmed. Stella, Diego protested, blushing. It's true, Luna added. And he also worries a lot about our hair. He watched YouTube tutorials for weeks before he learned to make pigtails. Paloma laughed. Seriously? My first attempt looked like I had stuck my fingers in an electrical socket, Diego admitted. Alara always made it look so easy. His voice trailed off slightly when he mentioned his late wife. Paloma noticed how the girls automatically moved closer to him, a protective gesture they had learned in the years since the loss. It must have been very difficult, Paloma said softly. The first few months were hell. Diego was honest, knowing the girls had heard this conversation before. I didn't know how to handle their grief when I could barely handle my own. How did you get through it? Paloma's question was genuine, not just polite. Family therapy, Diego replied, and a lot of patience. The girls taught me as much as I taught them. Dad cried a lot at first, Luna said matter-of-factly, but Dr. Sarah told us it was okay to cry, and now he only cries when we watch sad movies, Stella added. Diego smiled. Thanks for completely exposing me, girls. Paloma watched them with a mix of admiration and something she couldn't fully identify. Envy? Nostalgia? During her career, she had seen many families destroyed by forced migration, but few who had found a way to heal and grow together after a loss. And you? Diego asked. Your job must be emotionally exhausting. Paloma took a sip of wine before answering. It's complicated. I've seen things I would rather not have seen. Families separated, children who have lost everything. She stopped, aware that the twins were listening. But I've also seen incredible strength in people. Does it give you nightmares? Luna asked with genuine concern. The question took Paloma by surprise. Sometimes, she admitted after a moment. We also used to have nightmares after Mom left, Stella said. But Dad bought us little lights for our room and read us stories. Who reads you stories when you have nightmares? Luna asked. Paloma felt a lump in her throat. No one, my love. I live alone. That must be very lonely, Luna observed with the unsettling wisdom of children. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. Diego changed the subject, asking about the places Paloma had visited. But Luna's observation had touched something deep. After dinner, as they walked up to their rooms, the girls insisted on showing Paloma their travel games. In Diego's room, they spread out their collections of stickers and small stuffed animals. This is Bear, Stella said, showing a small, worn teddy bear. Mommy Alara gave him to me. And this is my travel journal, Luna added, showing a notebook full of drawings and childish handwriting. I write about all the places we visit. Paloma sat on the bed, genuinely interested. Can I see? While the girls showed her their treasures, Diego watched them from the small sitting area of the room. Paloma had a natural patience with them. She answered their questions without condescension. She was genuinely interested in their little worlds. Her phone vibrated. A work message. Crisis on Venezuela-Colombia border is intensifying. Can you get there early tomorrow? Team already en route. Paloma read the message, feeling the familiar pull between professional duty and, what? A pleasant evening with old acquaintances? Work? Diego asked, noticing her expression. Yes. They need me to be in Cucuta tomorrow morning. Where is Cucuta? Stella asked. In Colombia, near Venezuela, Paloma replied. There's a complicated situation there. Is it dangerous? Luna's question was direct. Paloma hesitated. She didn't want to lie, but she also didn't want to scare the girls. It can be, but I'm careful. Diego looked at her with an expression he couldn't fully interpret. Concern? Disapproval? Well, girls, it's time for Paloma to get some rest, he finally said. She has to work tomorrow. As they said goodbye, Stella impulsively hugged Paloma. I like you, she declared, with the simple honesty of children. Luna was more reserved, but she took Paloma's hand. I hope you don't have nightmares tonight. After Paloma went to her room, Diego put the girls to bed. But he couldn't sleep. He stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, processing the strangest day he had had in years. In the next room, Paloma was also awake. For the first time in months, she wasn't thinking about deadlines or international crises. She was thinking about two little girls who had lost their mother, and about the man who had once been the center of her world, who was now someone completely different. And for the first time in 8 years, she wondered what would have happened if she had made different choices. Chapter 5: A Glimmer of Hope. Paloma woke up at 5 in the morning, as always. It was a habit she had developed in her years as a correspondent, getting up before the world to check international news. But this morning, instead of immediately opening her laptop, she stayed in bed looking out the hotel window. She hadn't been able to sleep well. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Luna and Stella's faces asking her who read her stories when she had nightmares. The answer: no one. It had echoed in her mind all night. Her phone vibrated. Another message from her editor. Situation in Cucuta, more complex than expected. You can take the 2 p.m. flight if you need more time, but we need your analysis for Sunday's report. For the first time in her career, Paloma seriously considered postponing an assignment. She showered and got dressed, but instead of checking out immediately, she went down to the hotel restaurant. Diego was already there with the twins, who were eating hotcakes while he drank coffee and checked his phone. Good morning, she said, approaching their table. Paloma. Stella's face lit up immediately. Are you leaving already? Not yet. My flight doesn't leave until the afternoon, Can you have breakfast with us? Luna asked. Diego made room for her at the table. Of course. While Paloma ordered, Diego noticed that she looked tired. Did you sleep well? Not much, she admitted. I was thinking about what the girls said yesterday. About the nightmares? Luna had been listening. Yes, among other things. Stella leaned in conspiratorially. Do you want us to teach you how to scare away nightmares? You guys know how to do that? Dad taught us, Luna explained. When you have a nightmare, you have to think of something that makes you happy, like ice cream or dogs, or when Dad takes us to the park. And it works? Sometimes, Stella admitted. But it's better if someone hugs you too, Diego smiled. Therapy according to the Ramirez twins. Don't laugh, Luna protested. It really works. Paloma's phone rang. It was a video call from her editor. Excuse me for a moment, she said, walking away from the table. Diego could hear fragments of the conversation in Spanish. Paloma spoke with professional fluency, coordinating with teams in different countries, discussing story angles and travel logistics. When she returned to the table, the girls were looking at her, impressed. Do you always work like that? Luna asked. Most of the time, yes. Don't you get tired? Stella seemed genuinely concerned. Paloma considered the question. Yes, I get tired, but it's important. The stories I tell help people understand what's happening in the world. But who takes care of you while you're taking care of the stories? Luna's question was so direct that it left Paloma speechless. Diego intervened gently. The girls are right. It's important to take care of yourself. It's complicated, Paloma finally replied. My job requires me to be available when crises arise. Like doctors? Stella asked. Something like that. But doctors also take vacations, Luna observed. Dr. Sarah told us she goes on vacation too. Diego smiled at his daughter's relentless logic. Luna's right. Paloma looked at them. In her 8 years of career, no one had questioned her dedication to work in this way. Her colleagues admired her for her availability. Her editors trusted her to always say yes to difficult assignments. But 2 6-year-old girls had put their finger on something she had avoided examining. What are you going to do today? She asked, changing the subject. Our flight leaves at 4, Diego replied. We were thinking of seeing a bit of the city if the weather improves. Do you want to come with us? Stella's invitation was spontaneous. I don't know if I should. Why not? Luna asked. Paloma looked at Diego, searching for some sign of what he thought. What she saw was not the impatient young man she remembered, but someone who had learned to read the needs of others. If you're not in a hurry to get to the airport, you could accompany us, he said carefully. Only if you want. Paloma checked her phone again. Her 2 o'clock flight would give her enough time to get to Cucuta that night. But her editor had said she could take the 4 o'clock. My 2 o'clock flight was canceled anyway, she lied. I can take one later. The lie surprised even herself. In 8 years of career, she had never put something personal before work. Perfect! Stella yelled, clapping her hands. A few hours later, they were in the historic center of Mexico City. Diego had rented a car, and as he drove, Paloma acted as an impromptu tour guide. This is the Zócalo, she explained, as they walked through the main square. It's one of the largest squares in the world. The girls were fascinated by everything. The colonial buildings, the street vendors, the mix of old and new. Why do you talk differently from Dad? Stella asked, as they ate ice cream. Because I'm from Mexico, and your dad is from Argentina, Paloma explained. In each country we speak Spanish a little differently. Like when Aunt Martha says vos and we say tú? Luna asked. Exactly. Diego watched them interact. Paloma had a natural patience with the girls that surprised him. The woman he had met at 24 was smart and ambitious, but she had been impatient with anything that was not part of her immediate plans. This Paloma knelt to the girls' level, answered all their questions, seemed genuinely interested in their perspectives on the world. In the cathedral, while the girls lit candles for Mommy Alara, Diego and Paloma stayed behind. "They're incredible," she said in a low voice. "They're a lot like Alara in personality," Diego replied. "Curious, empathetic, brave. And like you, they're stubborn like me." Paloma laughed. "That hasn't changed." For a moment, the weight of the years disappeared between them. They were those young people again, who could joke, who knew each other well enough to tease each other. "Paloma," Diego began, but was interrupted by Stella. "Can we go to that museum that has dinosaurs?" she asked, pulling on Paloma's hand. "The Museum of Natural History," Paloma suggested. "Yes." As they walked toward the museum, Paloma's phone rang again. It was her editor, asking for her ETA in Cucuta. "I can be there early tomorrow," she replied. Whether Diego was listening, when she hung up, he looked at her with curiosity. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, just coordinating schedules." But something in her voice told Diego that there was more than she was admitting, and something in the way Paloma avoided his gaze told him that she was struggling with decisions she hadn't had to face in a long time. In the museum, while the girls explored the dinosaur exhibits, Paloma stayed watching an exhibit on animal migration. "What are you thinking about?" Diego asked, approaching her. "About decisions," she replied without taking her eyes off the information panels. "About how animals know when it's time to migrate and when it's time to stay." Diego studied her. "And do you know?" Paloma finally looked at him. "That's the question, isn't it?" Before he could answer, Stella came running. "Paloma, you have to see the baby dinosaur fossils. They're super small and cute." As he followed the girls, Diego was left thinking about Paloma's response. For the first time since he had seen her again, he wondered if she was also questioning the decisions that had led them to such different lives. And for the first time in 8 years, he wondered if there was still room for second chances. Chapter 5: The Courage to Choose Love. Back at the airport, reality hit everyone. It was time to say goodbye. Diego and the twins were heading to their boarding gate for Cancun, while Paloma had to go to hers for the night flight to Caracas. "Do we have to go now?" Stella asked, shuffling her feet. "Yes, my love." "Our flight leaves in an hour," Diego replied, carrying the backpacks. Paloma knelt in front of the twins. "It was a wonderful day. Thank you for teaching me about dinosaurs and for sharing your ice cream with me." "Are you going to write to us?" Luna asked. "If your dad gives me his number, of course." Diego and Paloma exchanged phones to save their contacts, a gesture that felt strangely intimate after so many years. "Take good care of yourselves on your vacation," Paloma said, standing up. "You too, take care," Diego replied. "And thanks for today." The girls had an amazing time. They stood there in the middle of the airport's bustle, neither of them sure how to say goodbye properly. Finally, Paloma hugged each of the twins. "Remember what I taught you about scaring away nightmares," Stella said, hugging her tightly. "And if you need someone to read you stories, you can call us," Luna added. Paloma felt involuntary tears. "I will." They were heading toward separate boarding gates when Stella suddenly stopped. "Dad, wait." "What's wrong, my love?" Stella let go of his hand and ran toward Paloma, who was already a few feet away. "Paloma, wait!" Paloma turned, surprised. "You're going to be sad again?" Stella asked with the brutal honesty of children. The question caught her completely off guard. "Why do you ask that?" "Because yesterday at the restaurant, When you said you lived alone, you made the same face Dad used to make when he thought we weren't looking." Diego walked over, holding Luna's hand. "Stella, don't bother her." "She's not bothering me," Paloma interrupted, staring at the 6-year-old who had put her finger on something she had been avoiding acknowledging for years. "Dad was very sad before," Stella continued, "but now he smiles differently with you." "You're sad too." Paloma knelt to Stella's level. "Sometimes, yes, but can't you just change your mind? Dad says mistakes can be fixed if you really want to." The simplicity of the question cut directly to the heart of Paloma's dilemma. For 8 years, she had built her life around the idea that she had made the right decision, that her career was more important than love, that independence was worth more than vulnerability, that running away had been the mature option. But here was a 6-year-old girl asking her if she couldn't just change her mind. "It's complicated, my love," she finally replied. "Adults always say that," Luna observed, who had also approached. "But sometimes things are simpler than they think." Paloma looked at Diego over the girls' heads. In his eyes, she saw the same question the girls had verbalized, but more complex, loaded with history and pain. Her phone rang. It was her editor. "Excuse me," she murmured, answering. "Paloma, where are you? The team has already arrived in Cucuta, and we need your analysis for—" "Richard," she interrupted her editor for the first time in her career. "Can you send Martinez? I have a family situation." "A what?" "You don't have family." Her editor's words echoed in the air. He was right. Paloma had meticulously built a life without family ties, without commitments that could interfere with her career. "It's complicated," she repeated, using the same words she had used with Stella. "Paloma, this story is important for the Sunday special. If you're not available, send Martinez," she said firmly. "I can be there tomorrow night." "Are you sure? This is not like you." He was right again. It wasn't like her. The Paloma he knew never postponed an assignment. She never put something personal above work. "I'm sure." When she hung up, the 3 most important people in her life were looking at her expectantly. "You're not leaving anymore?" Stella asked with hope. Paloma looked at her watch. Her flight to Caracas left in 40 minutes. Diego's flight to Cancun in 30. "My work can wait until tomorrow," she said, feeling as if she were jumping off a cliff. "Is there room for one more on that vacation?" Stella's smile was blinding. Luna simply nodded, as if she had always known this was the right answer. Diego looked at her for a long moment. "There's always room for you," he finally replied, echoing the words he had said 8 years ago when he proposed. As they walked toward the airline counter to change the tickets, Paloma felt a mixture of terror and liberation. For the first time in 8 years, she didn't know exactly what was going to happen next. "Are you sure?" Diego asked in a low voice, while the girls chose seats on the plane. "No," Paloma admitted, "but I think that's the idea. Aren't you going to regret it when your editor realizes what happened?" Paloma considered the question. There would probably be professional consequences. Her reputation as the journalist who always said yes was at stake. But looking at Diego and the twins, she realized that for the first time in years, that didn't seem to be the most important thing. "If I regret it," she said, "at least it will be for something I chose to do, not for something I let pass me by." An hour later, they were on the plane heading to Cancun. The twins had insisted that Paloma sit between them, while Diego settled across the aisle. As the plane took off, Stella took Paloma's hand. "Are you still sad?" she asked. Paloma looked out the window at the lights of Mexico City, disappearing below them. Then at the girls who had adopted her so naturally, and finally at Diego, who was watching her with a mixture of hope and caution. "A little less," she replied honestly. "That's good," Luna said wisely. "Sadness doesn't go away all at once, but it can go away little by little." As the plane flew toward the Caribbean, Paloma realized that the twins were right about many things. Changes didn't have to be perfect to be right. And sometimes the most important decisions were made not with the head, but with the heart. For the first time in 8 years, she didn't know exactly where her path was taking her. But for the first time in a long time, she was excited to find out. Chapter 6. Building New Foundations. 6 months after that unexpected encounter at the Mexico City airport. "Dad, Paloma is on TV again," Stella, now 7 and more observant than ever, shouted from the living room. Diego walked out of the kitchen of his Buenos Aires apartment, wiping his hands with a cloth. On the screen, Paloma was reporting from Miami on the new U.S. migration policy. She looked professional and confident, but Diego could spot the weariness in her eyes that others wouldn't notice. "She looks tired," Luna, who now read fluently and had developed a special sensitivity for reading people's emotions, observed. "It's been a difficult week," Diego confirmed, "but she's arriving tomorrow for your birthday." The twins had insisted on celebrating their 7th birthday when Paloma was in Buenos Aires. It was the 3rd time she had visited since she had taken the job in Miami, and each visit had felt more natural than the last. It hadn't been easy. The first visit, 2 months after Cancun, had been awkward for everyone. The girls expected things to be exactly as they were on vacation. Diego didn't know how to behave in his own home, and Paloma had felt like an intruder in the life he had built with Alara. "Why do you have so many photos of Mommy Alara?" Paloma had asked during that first visit, seeing the photographs that decorated the living room. "Because it's important for the girls to remember her," Diego had responded, a little defensively. "I'm not criticizing," Paloma had quickly clarified. "It's beautiful. I was wondering where I fit into all this." It had been Luna, with the wisdom of her 6-year-old self at the time, who had resolved the dilemma. "Paloma, you don't replace Mommy Alara," she had said, taking her hand. "You're Paloma. It's different." "Different how?" Paloma had asked. "Mommy Alara took care of us when we were babies. You take care of us now that we're big." Stella had nodded vigorously. "And besides, you know how to do French braids. Mommy Alara only knew how to do regular pigtails." Since then, they had found a balance. The photos of Alara were still in their place. The girls continued to talk about her naturally, but they had also made room for Paloma in their hearts and in their routine. Diego's phone rang. It was Paloma. "Hello, my love," he answered, a phrase he had started using naturally after the 3rd month. "Hello. Are the girls awake? I want to wish them good night before my flight tomorrow." "Paloma!" the twins yelled in unison when Diego put the phone on speaker. "Hello, my beautiful girls. How was school?" "Good, but we miss your calls," Luna said. "Dad said you had a lot of work this week." "Yes, but I'm done. I'm going to be there for your birthday tomorrow." "Did you bring the Mexican candy you promised?" Stella asked directly. Paloma laughed. "Of course. And something else?" "What?" they both asked. "It's a surprise." After the girls said goodbye and went to brush their teeth, Diego continued talking with Paloma. "How are you really?" he asked. "You looked tired in the report." "Tired, but okay," Paloma admitted. "This coverage of the new migration policy has been intense, but also important. What about Richard's proposal?" Paloma sighed. Her editor had offered her the permanent traveling correspondent job with a significant salary increase. It was professionally tempting, but it would mean going back to the life she had before. "I still haven't answered him. What's stopping you? You know." Diego smiled. After 6 months of honest conversations, late-night video calls, and constant messages, they both knew that something real was growing between them. It was different from their youthful relationship, more mature, more aware of difficulties, more appreciative of quiet moments. "Paloma, you know I support whatever decision you make." "I know, but for the first time in years, there are other people besides me in the equation." The next day, Paloma arrived in Buenos Aires with 2 suitcases, one with clothes, the other full of gifts for the twins. The girls greeted her at the airport like a rock star. "Paloma, did you bring tacos?" was the first thing Stella asked. "Not exactly tacos, but something delicious." The birthday celebration was at the girls' favorite park. Diego had invited some of the twins' friends and their parents. At first, he had been nervous about officially introducing Paloma as his partner, but the girls had done it for him. "This is Paloma, Dad's girlfriend," Luna had announced to everyone with total naturalness. "She's a journalist, and she talks differently because she's from Mexico," Stella had added. The other parents had been curious but kind. Some remembered the difficulties Diego had faced as a single father and were happy to see him happy again. "How do you manage the long distance?" asked Sandra, Luna's best friend's mom. "Day by day," Paloma replied honestly. "It's difficult, but video calls help a lot, and the girls are very understanding." "Are you planning to move in together?" Paloma and Diego looked at each other. It was the question they had been avoiding. "We're seeing what works best for everyone," Diego replied diplomatically. That night, after the girls fell asleep exhausted from the day's excitement, Diego and Paloma sat on their apartment balcony with a glass of wine. "I have something to tell you," Paloma said. "Good or bad, it depends on how you see it." Paloma took a sip of wine. "I told Richard no." Diego sat up straight. "Seriously?" "I also asked for a permanent transfer to Buenos Aires." "What?" "Univision is opening an office here to cover the Southern Cone. They need someone with experience in migration to coordinate regional coverage." Paloma smiled nervously. "The salary is less, but I can work from home most of the time." Diego looked at her, trying to process the information. "Are you saying that—" "I'm saying that I want to try this for real. Not just weekend visits, but building something together." "Are you sure? Your career?" "My career will be fine. But more importantly, I will be fine. For the first time in 8 years, I'm not afraid of what might happen if I stay in one place." Diego put down his glass and kissed her. It was the first real kiss they had shared since they had reunited, and it felt like a promise. "What if it doesn't work?" he asked when they broke apart. "Then at least we will have tried," Paloma replied. "But I think it's going to work." "Why are you so sure?" Paloma smiled, looking toward the room where the twins were sleeping. "Because Luna and Stella taught me that the most important decisions are not made with the head, they are made with the heart." 3 months later, Paloma had officially moved to Buenos Aires. Her office was set up in the guest room of Diego's apartment, and the twins had insisted on helping to decorate it. It was not perfect. There were difficult days, discussions about schedules, challenges of balancing 2 demanding careers with raising the girls. Paloma sometimes missed the adrenaline of her old job, and Diego sometimes felt insecure about whether he could really compete with the passion she felt for her career. But there were also magical moments. Paloma teaching the twins words in different languages, Diego designing a perfect office space for her to work comfortably, the 4 of them creating new family traditions that honored both the past and the future. "Are you happy?" Diego asked her one night, as they watched a movie after putting the girls to bed. "Yes," Paloma replied without hesitation. "Different from how I thought happiness would be. But yes." "Different how?" "More peaceful, less dramatic, more real. Diego smiled. Do you regret anything? Only taking so long to realize that mature love is better than young love. Why? Because young love thinks it can conquer the world. Mature love knows that it's a big enough conquest to get up every day and choose to love despite the difficulties. As the lights of Buenos Aires shone outside their window, Diego and Paloma realized that they had built something that neither of them had imagined when they met at 24 and 32. A chosen family, a conscious love, a life that honored both their individual dreams and their mutual commitment. It was not the fairy tale they had dreamed of in their youth. It was better. It was real. It was worked for. It was chosen every day. And for the first time in many years, both of them knew they were exactly where they belonged. What did you think of the story of Diego, Paloma, Luna, and Stella? Leave us your comments below. On a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate this story? Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our stories.